What is going on, fam? What is crack-a-lacking? Welcome to Nutrition Tuesday. And today I'm going to expose the three biggest lies about body fat that I've actually exposed. And I'm going to reveal them to you today. And before we do that, I want to give you a bit of an update. Let's just make sure that we're good. Oh, yeah, let's make sure that I'm not shouting and screaming into the mic. But yeah, so last week I took some time off just to work on a few things and working just, figuring out some stuff on the channel, just making sure that everything is in order for a show. And so that took a bit of time because I'm working on my own, right? So I do a lot of stuff on my own. So I just took some time off. And one of the things that I was working on is just the journals as well. So I'll share with you a bit at the end, a bit about what I've been working on at the end, so that you can also see what I've been doing. And if you'd like to be part of it, then there's going to be room for us to grow together. And yeah, so we'll first get into our show today, and then after that, I'll share with you a bit about the few updates that I have, and then we'll discuss if there's anything from there. Then you can just let me know. Sound off in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. But anyway, so today's show, I'm going to be talking about the three biggest lies about body fat, and a lot of lies that are spewed by social media, by news influences, everyone just in the fitness industry, because you find that health and fitness, let me call it health and fitness, it's not just fitness, but it's like health, right? People sort of try to separate these things, but it's like health and fitness, because you have one group of people that say body fat is bad, you should get rid of all body fat, and there's another group of people that say body fat doesn't matter, and you can have as much body fat as you want and you'll be fine. So both extremes are dangerous. So by the end of today's show and today's episode, I want to help you understand exactly why people get it wrong about body fat, and what are the three biggest lies that people have been telling us for ages about body fat, and to help you actually understand what you need to do in order for you to lose weight, be healthier, and have a better relationship with your body. So, one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that we do is just making sure that, let's see, yeah, so let me share my screen right here. Yeah. So, one of the things that we face in today's world with social media and all the different sources of media, and not just social, but news, magazines, all of that stuff. Like a lot of, there were a lot of people who are like experts, let's call it that tend to say certain things. And they know that, okay, if they say something, it'll hook people. So if they say, hey, this is bad for you, it should be 1% body fat, or 2% body fat, or 3% body fat, or like under 10% body fat. That's the healthiest point for you to be in. If you're a guy, for example, and if you're a girl, they might say like you have to be under like 15%. And that's how you know that you're healthy, right? So you have people that have these sound bites, and they tell you these extreme things. And I've seen like what's this Diary of CEO, like if you've seen some of his shows where he has like different experts that come on onto his show, and then they kind of say something that's that's wild and crazy out there. They uh, uh, they essentially clickbait people, right? They hook people in to just hear what ridiculous claim that they're gonna make, right? Because someone was actually literally like one of the videos that I made was like, okay, yeah, we're not gonna be able to breathe because apparently breathing will actually be bad for you. And yeah, and I actually saw a video where someone was actually saying the same thing, that if you breathe, you might die because you're feeding. What was it? Can't forget. It was like something to do with cancer. And the other one was like this lady said that, yeah, there was actually a study where people was told to just sit down without doing anything. And they actually saw, what was it, like a 30% increase in muscle gain. It's like you're just sitting, you're not doing anything, right? So just crazy stuff like that, right? I'm sure there's like a bit more context and all of that stuff, but people don't take time to go dig in to really find out, okay, what's the truth behind this, and to uncover the real meaning of why we carry body fat. Because if we just listen to some of these sound bites, and most people are not going to go do the research, right? Because some of it takes you time, and you just trusting people to tell you the right information. So when people don't tell you the right information, they kind of give you these sound bites and these like hooks to just, you know, kind of draw attention by saying something ridiculous. That's all they want. So their incentive is in that, but they're not really trying to educate you. They're not really trying to help you understand what is right, what is not right. How do you find the right spot for you as a person? So that's the missing piece, because everything has, I'll say, nuance as well, because in different parts of the world, people have different ways of living, and based on our environments, we adapt. And this also comes down to our diet, like the food that's available to us, right? So things like that, they all need to have context for us to understand, okay, does this actually make sense or it doesn't make sense? To today, I picked the three biggest lies that we've been told about body fat. So, the first thing that we want to establish and really understand is what happens when we hear these lies, because you hear that people in within the fitness industry, they tell you like, okay, boom, hate your body image issues, body dysmorphia. There is a big problem with that. And you also have the opposite of the spectrum, where there's like body positivity. People like, probably like 40% body fat. And you have all of these different things. So this leads people to feeling some type of way about their bodies, about how they look, and about their shape. And you have different diets. People start telling you, okay, you need to use this diet or get on this diet. So it gets confusing for a lot of people, right? So the first thing that I've seen and I've actually managed to uncover is that body fat is not just about calories, because people now have turned body fat into a math equation where it's like, okay, eat this amount and you'll lose X amount. Eat this, you'll lose X amount. And if you stop eating this, you're going to look this way. So it's kind of like it's been turned into like this math equation where you have to like get every single thing right, right? So that's the issue when it comes to like understanding body fat, because by just looking at the calories, fixating on the calories, because I've realized, because even for me personally, like I think, because I have a bit more context and understanding, because I've done this for so long, I understand what I'm doing when I'm calculating calories, right? And like for the past month, 2 months, like I haven't been calculating my calories. I haven't been tracking everything, but I I just have a scale. I just put my plate on a scale, just pop, 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 done. I'm not checking the calories. I'm just checking the amount of food that I'm eating. And then usually once I know, like, okay, this is how much I'm eating, and then I'm just looking at how I look, how I feel. So I'm just adjusting based on off that, not necessarily based off the MyFitnessPal all the time. But I will have seasons when I go into MyFitnessPal, especially if I really want to achieve something. Like, let's say if you're bodybuilding, right? Like if you're trying to compete for something, if you're gonna really be like an athlete, get to that like that high level, then that's when maybe it matters a bit more. But to take that advice and just to give to the general population and just people just who are just living their normal lifestyle, it's misses the mark and becomes a lie, right? It's only true when you're like an athlete. You're trying to achieve that high level of excellence in whatever domain sport that you're competing in. And so at that point, you have to do that. So imagine like a marathon runner, like ultra marathon runner. They need energy. They need to know how much energy they need. And they also don't want to get too fat. So they have to sort of like think about like, okay, what are they eating? How much do they need? The sugar that they need to eat. And because a lot of runners actually need sugar, like glycogen, for them to be able to process it fast, right? And burn it faster. So that's different advice completely based on where people are. So the average person, and this is who I'm talking to, like you right now, just the average person, you're at home, you want to lose weight, but you're hearing someone telling you like you have to calculate your calories all the way, right? So this is the first thing that we need to understand, right? So body fat is not only about calories, because when you think about it, you need to be able to do something that you can do repeatedly. Even if, let's say, your phone died, you don't have an app to track your calories. So what are you going to do? You're going to lose your mind because you can't track everything. Or if you travel, what are you going to do? Right. So you have to think about this, because even when you travel, that's the one thing that I've seen, like in different parts of the world, the way that they track their food, like the nutritional facts, like the labels, it's very different. Certain things they actually are, are supposed to write down on the food labels are different in different places. So the standards are different. So when you obsess just about, okay, these are the number of calories that I'm eating. Something that has like 2,000 calories here, let's say in like if you're in North America, and then you go to a place like in Asia, it might be a different measure altogether, or in Europe it might be different, or in Africa it might be different. So that's what you find, that when you just base it off the calories, because some people don't even track calories, it doesn't even make sense to them. They don't think about that. So it's important for us to understand that body fat loss is not just a math equation, and what we do repeatedly every single day matters more. What we do without necessarily tracking, looking at your phone, say, okay, I ate 500 calories today, I ate 400 calories today, or, for lunch, for breakfast. So that's just something that we do if we're maybe starting out. So if you're starting out your fitness journey, maybe you just want to get a baseline. You're like, okay, how much am I eating? Okay, how much does 2,000 calories look like on a plate, or like in a four meal plan, right? Like if you have 4 meals in a meal plan, so you want to see like, okay, what does that 2,000 calories look like? So that's when it matters to like, okay, just getting that baseline. But you want to be able to do something consistently and repeat it over and over and over again. Because if you're not able to do this consistently over and over again, the moment you don't have the tools to track, you're going to be lost and you're going to lose your mind. So you want to understand that, okay, calories are not the end all be it all. And body fat is not all determined by tracking your calories. It's important, but it's not all about the calories. So you have to understand that it's about the habits that you form, the foods that you eat, the meals that you have, the consistency is more important than the actual calories. Lie number two is that having body fat means that you failed. And I find this, it happens with a lot of people. This is the part that a lot of people, they struggle with this part, because they look into the mirror, right? You're going to take a shower, look into the mirror, like, oh, I got a belly. Oh, I can't see the definition on my abs. Oh, okay. So you start feeling bad about yourself. And you're like, oh, why don't I look the way that I looked like when I was like 16 or 18? And you start feeling shame, or maybe someone has made a comment about your body, and you've internalized that feeling or that idea that someone else is telling you that, hey, like I'm overweight. So that's a problem. Swift, what's good? Welcome. So that's a problem when you actually see that people are they're now turning on themselves, and they start hating their bodies because the body fat is maybe a little bit higher than what they used to have. But What they're not understanding is that the shame that they feel, and they feel like, okay, they want to go and start working out, that feeling, that emotion that's inside, it's not going to carry them through to actually be healthy in the long term, because you end up getting into that place where you start hating your body. And when you hate your body, you will resent yourself because you'll just do actions that are driven by hate for yourself, for your body. And eventually you reach a breaking point where you're like, but why am I doing this? And that feeling of just hating yourself is not going to sustain you. It's hard to just carry that emotion inside. It can get you started for sure, but to sustain you in the long term, that internal feeling of body shaming yourself, it's not going to hold you. You're not going to be able to get healthy, lose weight, and reach your goals and be there and stay there and be healthy for the longest time. So you have to really understand that the emotions that you feel about yourself, how you look in the mirror, that's a relationship that you have to build with yourself to have respect for yourself. It's more of honoring your body, as you know, in a Christian context, it's like honoring your body as a as a dwelling place for the Holy Spirit. So this is the temple of the Lord, the temple of God. So when you realize that, okay, so my role is to steward my body, and this is just a body that we have for now, and so the things that we do in terms of stewarding, it's just eating healthier, having that relationship, and knowing that that relationship is about what God has put inside you, not what you look like in the mirror. And just looking at yourself saying, oh, like my body fat percentage is a bit too high. I can't see my abs. Okay, I want to do this. Like, it's okay to, like, look good and feel confident. I'm not saying don't look good and feel confident, but it's like, what do you put above everything else? What is the role for you having that body? So you have to understand that the moment you have a good relationship with your body, you stop trying to beat your body into submission to say, hey, you're going to lose weight. And the moment you lose weight, you're going to be happier, because you won't be happier the moment you lose weight, because our bodies naturally, they fluctuate. We go through different seasons in life where maybe you have all the time in the world and you can get to the gym every single day and you can meal plan every single day. Maybe the next season in your life, maybe you're having a family, you're having a relationship that you have to take care of, you have kids. So the time for you to go and spend as much time in the gym or cooking is not that much. Or maybe you're a grandparent now, you have time with your grandkids, you've got work, you've got different things that you're doing. So because we go through different seasons, the time that we have, the dedication that we have to, like, maybe spending time in the gym is different. And meal planning, so you have to, like, really think about it as you're not doing it for just looking good, but you're doing it as a way to honor your body and honoring it as a temple of the Holy Spirit. And by doing that, it allows us to have more grace for ourselves, because you want to replace that shame with grace and love and compassion. Because when you can have that relationship with your body that's healthy, that allows you to actually understand, like, okay, my role right now is to rest. I need more rest today. Okay, tomorrow I need to eat healthier food. I need to hydrate my body. I need to exercise. I need to move, right? It doesn't mean that you have to spend time in the gym, but you just have to be active. You have to nourish your body. You can't just be sedentary, just sitting down every single day. But you can spend time, maybe you play with your kids. In this case, that's your movement. You go on a walk with your kids. You go to the park with your kids, you play, or with your grandkids. And that movement, you're now incorporating it with your family, with the relationships, because you're building yourself and building your life with family and relationships. And it could also be like community, right? Spending time with your community, with people, so that you're not holding stress, you're not thinking and keeping those thoughts inward. So that's the part where you start realizing that, we've been lied to, that we have to focus on ourselves, and it's about how we look that matters the most. And it's the outward appearance. that matters. And if you're overweight, you're undisciplined, or you should feel shame or feel bad about yourself. Whereas that's not the case. You have to have a relationship with yourself, a healthy relationship with yourself, respect, grace, compassion. Those three things, those three things will help you live a life where you're more aligned with your own body, and you have a relationship with your body, and your spirit is calm, and you're honoring your body and living as a Christian should, and you're stewarding your body in the right way, moving towards that relationship that God wants you to have. So which comes to like things like, let's say for example, if you're someone who indulges in, let's say, I don't want to say like alcohol is bad for you, like in the sense that, it's debatable, right, as a Christian, but alcohol is a toxin, right? And you find that people take things that are considered like toxins and sort of like recreational things. It could be any sort of like drugs and stuff. But when you think about like some of the things that we indulge in that make us lose a sense of who we are, or they alter our state of consciousness, and there's this level of like, let's say for weed, for example, like there's this level of disassociation with those spirits and the body, and that affects us. That is not honoring the temple. That is not honoring our spirit. So that is, even like sexual immorality, that is like, sins against the body, right? The Bible talks about the sins against the body. So it's for us to understand that we have to have a relationship with God and honor that our bodies are the temple of God. And so if God's spirit is dwelling inside of us, why do we sin against our bodies? That is the question. So again, that is the lie that you have to feel shame. So make sure that you're cultivating a good relationship with yourself, with your body, to understand, okay, where are these thoughts coming from? If you felt shame about your body, you felt like, because a lot of people suffer from body dysmorphia, right? Like it's not just women, it's men. It's not just like older people, it's kids, teens probably more common because they're going through like puberty, and their bodies are changing, and they're like wondering like, what is going on with my body, like why is this happening? I don't know if they still teach like, kids or science in school, in high school, or for them to understand like, okay, these changes that are happening, this is just my body. Because right now there's a problem with people trying to take synthetic drugs, right? You have the problem with like GLP-1 drugs and peptides with a lot of people because they feel like they need to do something about the body fat. And it's revealing right now. It's a very revealing that a lot of people that are taking these GLP-1s, and they're taking these, semi-glutide. So that's Wegovy, Ozempic, Areta. So these are all prescription drugs that people are taking to try and remove body fat and by reducing their appetite. But they're not understanding that what they're doing is actually doing more damage to them because they're not developing that relationship with themselves and developing the relationship with their food. So they go off because maybe, they're told like, if you take this, you'll be able to manage your appetite, you'll be able to manage your weight. But that is a big lie, big problem, right? So those are like external things, which leads us into the third one. It's people thinking that their circumstances in life are what is making fat loss impossible, because the outside world is something that we can also control to some degree. Because what we find is that, people say that, okay, my schedule is different, my age, I'm getting older, or my genetics and my hormones are not great, so they tend to think that they're not able to manage their weight and fat loss, which there is some truth, right? But the issue becomes that they fixate on that. and think that's the only thing that matters. Because if you don't have the best genes in the world, then you can't look a certain way. And which I guess it ties back into the second one, right? The second lie, because people start to compare themselves to other people, and then maybe they feel shame and all of that stuff, right? The internal stuff that's working. But the part that they need to understand is that the genetics, the hormones, the age, the food environment, schedule, those happen to everyone. There's nothing unique about one person, right? These things happen. These are natural parts of our lives. And the moment you focus on these external things that you cannot control, you get lost because you get swayed by every single thing because you think that you can control XYZ, right? Because these are natural processes, natural things that happen to us as we go through life, because you cannot separate your entire life from, your body and your habits. Like all of that, you can't separate it. So which brings me to say your daily habits are what actually matter the most, not your schedule, not your, I mean, schedule and daily habits are kind of tied together, so we can sort of give schedule a pass, but your genetics, your hormones, your age, and your environment, you could probably change some stuff in your house, like making sure that your kitchen is clean, making sure that your bedroom is tidy, like those things you can change. Your pantry, you can sort of change that stuff, which is good. But the main things that we know that we can't change, like genetics, your DNA, your age, those things are just going to naturally happen. Those are out of your control. So don't think that you can't lose weight because, you're older, or your genetics, you're told like, oh, you've got bad genetics. Sure. You know what? A lot of people have bad genetics. And the thing that you have to realize is that the habits that you form matter more than your genetics, matter more than your DNA or your age, because you've seen people who are like 70, 80, they're there. And the one thing that they always say when they ask, like, okay, how did you manage to stay this? Yeah, I can read the chat. I can see you. So I'll answer that at the end though. So what people at the end, what people in the end realize is that when they reach 80, 70, the habits that they carried on when they were younger are what actually allow them to stay fit. You see some 80-year-old person doing pull-ups, and they're doing squats, body weight squats, they're still in the gym, they're moving, they're agile. So this shows you that these people have started from the time that they were very young, and they just never stopped. It was just part of their daily habit. It doesn't mean that they are older, they can't keep on being active. And because of your genetics, it doesn't matter. Like someone can say, like, okay, I've got a higher chance of, gaining weight, higher risk of like having diabetes, right? But if you're someone who's like always going out on a walk, always exercising, always eating healthy, that risk, you can reduce the risk of having those issues with your health, just because you're consistent. Just because you're consistent every day, you've been working out, you've been sleeping, you've been tracking like your workouts. Say, okay, I go to the gym, I do this, I come back, and then you have like some sort of structure with your meals. So when you're able to actually have this structure with your meals, and just like something light, it doesn't have to be something crazy, right? Because the best exercise, the best form of exercise is the kind of exercise that you can do from the time that you're like very young to the time that you're like 70, 80, which walking is probably one of the easiest things that you can actually do, because the time that you're like 60, 80, you might not be able to lift heavy weights like as you were probably in your 20s, right? Because maybe your hormones are changing. But if you can do things like walking, exercising, like stretching, movement, any sort of like movement that keeps you active, you're going to see that your results and your ability to be healthy and keep weight off is going to be much greater just because you've been consistent. And your meals, just making sure that you're having healthy whole foods and not eating like processed foods that we know that they don't have any sort of like nutritional value. So you have to realize that these are the most important things that you have to start doing now. And these daily habits are what carry you into the future and what carry you into being healthier at the end of the day. So this, again, this is the third lie that people have told people. But we have to understand that, okay, like things like genetics, hormones, age, those things are like, yeah, sure, they play a factor, but they don't matter as much as your daily habits because these still people, if you've seen, yeah, like I said, like people who are like in their 70s, 80s, and they're still working out. So that should tell you something because now what we have to understand is like, okay, so Nate, you've told me these are the three biggest lies. So does body fat matter or doesn't matter? That's the question, right? That's the question. So does body fat matter or it doesn't matter? Wow, I'm sweating. Wow, I'm sweating quite a bit. It's getting hot. That light is bringing in so much. Okay. Yeah, so body fat at the end of the day, we have to understand that body fat is necessary for our health and for our bodies, right? But you don't want to have too much, but you also want to have body fat. So we're in between because body fat is what actually gives us energy. The fat is what gives us energy. And if you don't have body fat, it's going to be also harder for you to maintain your hormone levels. So your hormones need fat. And more importantly, for women, fertility, they need fat. They naturally women have a bit more body fat because they give birth. They're gonna, you know, create a whole human inside of them. So they need to grow cells, right? The cells they become, a human, a person. So that takes energy. And so those functions are important for us to understand that those are necessary. For men, same thing. Your testosterone also requires fat, right? Those hormones are important. So we need body fat. And we don't have to like demonize body fat, say, no, you don't need it at all. Because the one thing that people with people that compete in bodybuilding, you find that their fertility, their hormones get wrecked a lot of the times because they're replacing their natural test with a different test. So it's the same thing with people taking all of these peptides and different synthetics. It's sort of like they're starting now to try and replace the things that their body naturally produces and introduce synthetic things. And the synthetic molecules of these when they interact with your natural body and some of the processes, and if you're putting too much inside your body's going to react and respond. It's kind of like putting something foreign in your body. Yes, the molecule might look the same, but how your body naturally interacts with that molecule, right, might change because chemistry, when two things interact, they form something completely different. So sometimes people, when they, push and promote some of these things, they're looking at it from just like, oh yeah, chemically it looks the same, but then, from the point of a reaction, of a chemical reaction, it could form something completely different. That's why you find people have like these side effects when they now have to like, say like, oh yeah, I took Ozempic. Now I have like my belly is paralyzed. Like some people's guts are getting paralyzed because they're taking or they got it from like this lizard. The Ozempic, the protein that they took was from a lizard that eats like one meal for like a year. I can't remember what the exact period is, but it can eat one meal and sustain that meal for a long period of time. So by humans ingesting that, we're different, right? So we're trying to mimic those traits, but it's completely different. Like in my mind, it blows my mind. Say like, why are people not talking about this, right? And some people, they have like the intestines get paralyzed because they're not working anymore. There's no purpose for them to work the way that they're supposed to. And the cases where people have actually fallen and passed away. So these are things that people are not talking about, right? But it's important for people to understand this because, yeah, like people just, I don't know, it just amazes me. My mind is just amazed to find that people are, confusing people about what matters, how the body works, and it's basic science. I think it's basic science in chemistry, like stuff that you learn in high school chemistry and biology, but people are not sharing this information. They're not sharing this knowledge. So these are issues that we have to understand that body fat matters. There is purpose for us to have body fat. So the functions that our body needs, like survival included, insulation, body heat, right? The heat that we insulate within our bodies and our organs, right? We need that fat. So these are things that we need to understand. And also, excess body fat is also not good on the other side, on the other extreme, because excess body fat can also, if it's like visceral fat, like in between your like organs and stuff, you can squeeze your organs, and that can also cause problems. And your health markers also just drop, your inflammation increases. So you need to make sure that your body fat is not too much because you can be limited in things that you can do. Movement is also limited, right? Your energy, because even though fat gives you energy, but then when you have too much weight, right, too much fat, your movement becomes harder. And the way that your body is supposed to move, because you've got the muscular skeletal system where you also have your bones, and depending on how long your bones are, how much muscle you have, if you now have more fat, that might restrict the way that your body moves as well, depending on your height, right? The frame. So all of these things, if you have excess body fat, because someone who's taller might be able to put on more weight, right, than someone who's shorter. So these are things that we have to understand because also someone who's taller might need more energy because they just have a bigger frame. So they have more weight to manage. So the system needs and requires more weight. So they might be able to hold on to that. But if you've also seen at the same time, if you look at people who live the longest, you'll see that people who are smaller and shorter, they tend to live a bit longer than people who are bigger, right? Because the amount of energy that they require is less than someone who's much bigger. So when you now adapt your body to understand that, okay, I need to understand, like, okay, my body fat is important so that I maintain body functions, but also realizing that I need to have a good, healthy amount and not too much, right? Body fat. Because when you start seeing that your movement is restrained or you're getting inflamed or you're holding so much water weight, and you're swelling, like your eyes get puffy, your hands get puffy, your feet get puffy, you're inflamed all over the body, you have to now manage your weight a bit more because it might be water weight, it might be body fat, it might be a lot of things, and the body fat might cause you to hold water weight. And so it's like when one thing starts going wrong, other things can follow. So it's important to understand the importance of body fat, but not also have too much body fat, right? So the function for body fat, it's not just about, appearance, right? It's not about like, okay, because some people like also go body positive culture, sort of like going on the other extreme, right? So that's also not healthy. So you have to balance it and bring it back. Unless if you're like a football player, right? You're like those guys on the a defensive line, or like even offensive. I'm forgetting the positions, right? But if you're like someone who requires the weight to do certain jobs and to do certain things, it could be debatable. But then at the same time, how healthy is that, right? But these are things that you have to consider to understand, like, okay, am I willing to take this risk? Or am I willing to just, let go of this? And yeah, so just make sure that you understand that we need body fat for functions in our body. It's not about, aesthetics to reduce body fat for aesthetics or to increase body fat for aesthetics. Either way, it's not. But we have to think about function and less about like appearances. That's what we need to do. So always remember that shame does not burn fat. We need to move away from shame and we need to start moving towards stewardship. And as I said, respect is important, respecting your body and make sure that you're stewarding your body in the right direction. And that's much better than like even like discipline, because if you have like that sort of like relationship with your body where you can have grace for yourself, like even if you eat some meal that you weren't supposed to eat, like one time, two times, like lots of calories, it's not going to matter as much because you have grace for yourself. You're not going to feel bad and shame yourself, like say, oh, I'm not disciplined or this, that. But it's about realizing that you just need to have that balance, right? A good relationship with yourself and a healthy relationship with yourself. And that starts with the thoughts, the things that you believe, right? The mental state, what you think, what you believe. That's what you need to, first of all, make sure that you're mentally in the right place, aligned, right? And making sure that we move towards the right place. So the equation needs a system. So calories, repeated habits, sustainable fat loss. So like I said, the first lie is that if you just track calories, then you'll lose weight, right? That's not the full picture. You need to have things that you can do on a daily basis. And I wish I had brought my stuff, but it's in the kitchen right there. But what what I normally do is like, okay, just take the same plate and then I just put the same portion sizes, and that's it. So I'm not trying to measure, track everything on my fitness pal, unless if like there's like a new diet that I'm trying, something that a new food that I introduce into my diet, then I'll track just to see like, okay, what's the profile, like how does it fit into my diet, right? But what I end up doing consistently is just eating from the same plate, and the pantry will have like the same type of food, right? Make sure that there's a protein, there's a fiber, and then you have your carbs. So those are the ways that you have to really just understand like, okay, I have a structure with my meals. You're also not eating random meals, but you want to have something that's like very repeatable, right? Don't make it too hard for yourself, because sometimes tracking every single day gets harder, right? So you just need to have a baseline track to get a baseline, and then you just repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it doesn't mean that you don't have variety for your food. You can still have variety, right? But you're using the same process, right? Same plate, right? You cook in the same pots. If you have like a meal prep container that you use, you can just put your food in there, right? You have your portion sizes, stack it, put in the fridge. Tomorrow you come back and do it again. So it's the same thing that you have to do, but it's about understanding that the daily habits matter. And the foundation, again, it's like your protein, your food, right? Like your sleep, training, food environment, that's like your pantry, your grocery list. Those are the things that you want to make sure that you have. And then the structure, just having that consistency, something that you can repeat over and over again. So this is what we want to do. So this is like the framework that I use when I coach people and just help them to understand like, okay, what's the role of food? What's the role of like fat? What's the role of carbs, protein, that sort of thing? And identifying the excess, right? Is there something that I'm doing in excess that's not necessary, right? And then you build the deficit, like you figure out, like, okay, what are the foods that I'm eating? Just having awareness, right? Like I like to think about it like having awareness. And when you have awareness, it's easier to adjust something that you have awareness than something that you're like going in blindly, right? When you don't have anything that you understand and you just go in blindly. And then you want to make sure that you're also prioritizing your protein, right? Make sure that protein synthesis is happening. And then you have a repeatable system, right? Your meal plans, your diet plans are repeatable. And then so you just keep on doing the same thing. It's not about like, doing something once and it's just say, okay, I ate healthy today, one meal, and I'm good and I'm done. So you want to make sure that you're doing things that you can repeat over and over again, because I mean, I don't know, like it gets to a point where you just realize, as you do this over and over again, you just realize that the secret is actually in repeating the same thing that might feel boring, but you don't have to think about making it exciting, because the more excitement you have, the more volatile it becomes, right? You do the yo-yo dieting, right? Because you want to do something new, you want to add something new. Just keep it steady, keep it the same, consistent. Because I think in life, the other things to really worry about and think about than to try and change things all the time, right? So for variety, for people that like variety with like when it comes to like food, I always recommend like spices. If you have like good spices, right, your cupboards should have like good spices, and just find different ways to cook your food. Maybe you grill some food, maybe you bake some food, right? So you find different ways to cook the food. You use an air fryer, that could be one way. So right now you have to understand that if you are trying to understand body fat, understand how to lose weight for good and in a way that's sustainable, where it becomes just, your normal way of life, you have to realize that you have to make a decision, right? So there's the easy way and there's a path that requires a bit more structure and consistency. And so the easy way you can go, there's comfort and a bit of confusion. You see every single post that goes viral with some new or extreme diet trend, you follow that. It gets confusing. You go and try it, you attempt it, and the results are varying, right? It's quite volatile, and you're left confused, right? So you have like these crash diets, right? You feel bad about yourself because you're like, oh, I look bad. Oh, I ate too much. Oh, I look bad, right? Or you can just have more grace, more compassion, and respect for yourself. Build a healthy relationship with your body, right? Bringing awareness, like I was saying, like awareness, and you're not punishing yourself, because when you do this for the first time, you're not trying to punish yourself, but it's understanding that I'm just doing this as part of the process to bring awareness, right? When you're first calculating the calories, it's just more for you to bring awareness, not to try game every single thing and master every single piece of it, but it's to bring awareness to yourself to understand, like, okay, I'm doing this, and when I do this, this is the result that I get. And then you adjust as you go with that. And making sure that you're prioritizing your protein, your fiber, those are important to prioritize. And your training, you're going for a walk, you're stretching, you're doing some sort of workout at home or in the gym. So by you being able to do this consistently, you're also giving yourself grace and room, right, to grow. And you're also giving yourself sleep. Make sure that you sleep again, right? You want to make sure you sleep. And you have different ways that you can measure your progress, because the weight on the scale, or like your body fat alone cannot be the only measure for you to understand if you're successful or not. Because maybe it's about how you feel inside, how your spirit feels inside. Are you more aligned? Are you honoring your body? And maybe you're removing any toxins or things that hurt you, right? And those things might be just as important, right, for you to see if you're progressing. And you're also making sure that you're you're being able to repeat the things that you're doing, the habits. So making it easy enough for you to like come back, do it again tomorrow, come back, do it again tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be something that you can repeat over and over again, something that you enjoy, something that you enjoy. So that's pretty much it with like how to figure out like how to overcome these big lies, the three biggest lies that I expose. So when you can come to terms with this, like just really mindset wise, really figuring this out, you will see the results, and it will be long lasting. You'll stop thinking about like weight loss or like fitness and worrying about it, because it just becomes who you are. That's the point that everyone wants to get to, right? Where you stop thinking about it, because you're like, yeah, that's just what I do, right? You don't think about it. You don't think about like, and you don't react to every single health trend that comes up again, because you're like, nah, I figured it out. right? You don't have to come up with something new all the time. It's just about doing what works, and that's it, right? Stick with what works, and that's all you got to do. So, yeah, so I'm going to look at the chat here. So, okay, so I have a genuine question. I'm about 5'11, I'm 16, and I'm in a weight loss journey. I'm 219 pounds. I work out 4 days of the week, and I eat 1,600 calories a day. I eat once a day and every 5 days. Okay, so intermittent fasting. Okay, so if I'm staying under my 1,600 calories, can I lose weight only eating junk food? Can I lose weight only eating junk food under 1,600 calories? I don't eat junk food every day, but sometimes I do. Yeah, so to answer your question, right? Yeah, right. So how do you share this? Let's see if I can uh, let's see. Mhm. Let me see. How do you pop this chat out? Let me see. Pop out. I'm gonna share this so that. No. Is that it? No. Uh, no, that's not it. Okay, so studio pop out chat. That's crazy. I don't know how to. Why is it not showing? Okay, so I'm not able to show this on my screen right now. Let's see. Hmm. So I wish I was able to show this on the screen. But yeah, so your question, yeah, so essentially if you're eating under 1,600 calories, right? So you're 1,650 calories, can I lose weight only eating junk food and being under 1,600? So technically with the calories, you can lose weight, right? So depending on like, okay, what were you eating before you're trying to lose weight? So what's the difference, right? Because the food that you're eating, the junk food that you're eating also matters. Like how junk is the junk, right? Because some foods that you eat that are junk, they can make you hold water weight, more water weight, because what then matters is like, okay, so what is the kind of junk food that you're eating? So if you're eating like, let's say, just candies, sugar, so a lot of carbs, you might lose weight, right? You will lose some body fat, you will lose some, but you might also hold water weight, because if you're eating more carbs, 1 gram of carbs also holds a lot of water, right? It's about what, there's like four, I think, four carbons. I would have to look back at like the chemistry chart, but the molecules. But yeah, so your carbs, they hold water weight. They can hold water weight. So you might look full depending on what you're eating. And you will naturally, yes, you will lose some weight, but the look might not look like it, right? Like you'd have lost weight. The look might not look like it, but you will, technically, you will, because it's like thermodynamics, it's energy, but it's not healthy, right? That's the part to understand, that it's not healthy, because the 1,600, if whatever you're eating, it might, if it's junk food, it might not, it might lead you to eating more things. Like maybe if it's like, let's say if you eat McDonald's, maybe you might want to have like a McFlurry, you want to eat dessert, right? What are the things that you're eating matters, because if you're just tracking everything, because what you're describing is like if it fits my macros, and if it fits my macros, it's the source matters, right? If you're just looking at it from a scientific, purely like scientific point of view, like on paper, yes, you will lose weight, but is it healthy? No, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. So if you were to eat like one meal, yeah, sure, like you're fine, but majority of your food, like 80-20, let's say if you were to like split it where you have like 80-20, you should be able to like, sustain that kind of lifestyle, right? Because you're eating maybe 20% of your food is like junk, but 80% is healthy. You should be able to lose the weight depending on your goal. Like, what's your actual goal? Because right now, I'm seeing like, okay, you're 219, but I don't know what your goal is actually, right? So if you were to tell me like what your goal weight is, and is that 1600 healthy, then that's a different conversation, right? So there's a bit more information that I would want to know to like give you like a definitive like, hey, like, okay, you should get to your goal by X amount. Because if I'm looking at this, okay, 219, 4 days a week, okay, which is good because you're moving, but the question is, what is your goal? And depending on your goal, I would have to calculate to say, okay, how many pounds do you need to lose per week? And then if, let's say, for example, it's like, okay, maybe you want to lose, let's say, 40 pounds. And then I'm like, okay, so 40 pounds, if you want to lose 40 pounds, maybe you're losing 40 pounds. Let me bring out my calculator here. 219 minus 40 pounds, that's about 179, right? So uh, that's about 20 weeks. If you're losing about 2 pounds, 2 pounds per week, so which is 20 weeks, 20 weeks divided by 4, you're looking at roughly about 4 or 5 months for you to hit your goal. So I would also be checking your weight like every single week to see if you're progressing, if you're losing that weight, and then I would adjust if I'm losing the weight or not. But to base your diet just solely on junk food, I wouldn't recommend that. Even if you were to lose weight, I still don't recommend that, because you still need to nourish your body as you lose weight. Because sometimes when you lose weight, you cannot control how much, naturally, you can't control like if you're going to lose how much muscle, how much fat at the same time. But you can sort of like help yourself by eating healthy, prioritizing your protein, working out, right, doing strength training. And that way, if you're doing that and then you're not eating too much junk food, you can preserve more muscle than to just eat junk food, go work out, and you're surviving on junk food. So I wouldn't really recommend the junk food path, but if it's like 20% off your diet, sure, I think it should be all right. But yeah, there's definitely a bit more context that you'd have to put into that. But it's, yeah, but if you're looking at it from like just a strictly energy balance, yes, 1600. If you figured out like, okay, 1600 is a number that you have to hit, then sure. But yeah, but the question is like, what is the goal weight, right? What is the goal weight? And to figure out like, okay, how long should it take you to get there? Because if you don't have like a specific goal weight and you don't have like a timeline, it's going to be hard for you to know like if you're progressing towards that goal or not, right? So you want to figure out, okay, am I progressing towards that goal or not? And then if you just kind of go on without a goal, without like a timeline, without a date, and without the goal, specific goal, it's going to be hard because you're going to fluctuate. You don't know if you're on track, if you're not on track, if what you're doing in the past month was working or not, because you might find something happens in your life. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in school, and then school starts, something changes. Now you're wondering, like, okay, what changed? Right. So if you're not understanding like what your goal is and kind of where you are, it's going to be harder for you to figure out like, okay, what's working, what's not working, right? So I'd say like that's a piece that you'd want to sort of like figure out as well, uh, regarding that. But yeah, but in essence, I definitely would recommend, yeah, not eating junk food only to lose weight, right? But I understand that you say that you don't eat junk food every day, but sometimes you do, which is fine, right? Like if it's 20% of the time that you eat like once a week or like even in a day, like one of your meals is like, just kind of like a splurge, you should be fine. You should be all right. But as long as you also like, let's say, for example, if you're weighing yourself like once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, and you see that progress, right? And you've kind of figured out like okay, how much weight do you want to lose per week? So you can see for yourself like week by week how much you're losing. Let me see if I still have my own photo where I was losing some weight on a steady scale. Let's see. Mm, 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 mm. Let's see. This was last year, May, June, July. This was no, yeah, I think it was July. Let's see. Let's see where my scale is. Oh, I have to download the app again. Yeah. Okay, so if you can see that, let me just come back. Let's see. Um, yeah, so if you can see that, that's like me dropping weight, right? So that's what you want to see when you're trying to lose weight, right? Like you want to see that steady drop week after week. And when you have that steady drop week after week, you know that you're doing the right thing, right? So that's the first thing. So my own was like what 2.4 per week, right? 2.4 pounds per week, and that was like within 3 months. Yeah, so like a 3 month timeline, I dropped 31.4 pounds. So, and that's essentially what you want to be able to do, right? To figure out like, okay, how much am I dropping? And if you can take this stuff to a science to do it, right? But you don't, if you're just trying to live a normal life, you don't necessarily need to, right? The science works behind the weight loss, but you just have to realize that, okay, if you're trying to, maintain a good, healthy lifestyle, you just have to figure out like, okay, what is the healthy weight once you get there, but you now want to be able to maintain it, right? Because there's the part where you're in a deficit, and then there's the part where you're maintaining your weight. So now for me personally, like I'm more like in a maintenance phase because I dropped the weight, I lost the weight. So now I'm like more maintenance. Maybe I'll go up like 5, 10 pounds and then I'll drop down, right? And then if I want to get really, really shredded, then I'll start taking out like my fitness pal and start calculating the calories as well for me to like get super shredded. But I'm not looking for that because that's more like okay if you're trying to compete because that body weight when it drops down to like below 10% personally like even I feel I feel cold most of the times because my body fat is very low. So I can tell like there's a difference in how my body feels and my sensitivity to temperature is heightened when my body fat is very low. So these are things that I consider personally when it comes to like body fat percentage. So I try keep it a balance, right? Where I'm like, okay, I'm looking healthy for myself, right? In terms of like me being able to, wear my clothes and I'm still moving, functioning. I think about it moving or I don't. Let's see what happened. Oh, my frame's dropped. Now it's back. Okay. Yeah. So just thinking about my movement, things like that, that's what I focus on more than anything else. So yeah, but anyway, so that's our show today. So if there's no other questions, then I think that's it. Tomorrow I will see you guys for Wellness Wednesday. We are back tomorrow with another banger of a show. But I forgot before we go, I've been working on getting the journals. So some of the journals, some of you have already gotten the journals, right? So I'm getting the journals because a common question that I've been getting, I guess, let me kind of give you like backstory to this, but common question that I've been getting from people is, do the journals ship to different parts of the world? And so for the past, when I first launched them and released them, I was selling them on the site, just my Anchor Daily site, but I've been working on a few things just in the background to find ways to bring the cost down lower because some people are in different parts of the world to bring the costs down for the journals and finding different places that can distribute and help me with like getting the journals into people's hands. And the good news is the journals are now available on Amazon. So they're available on Amazon and it's still let's see, where do we have it? Let's see. No. Uh, this is it. Yeah, let's see. Where are you? Okay. Mm, why are they not showing? Mm, oh, this thing is crazy. Let's see. Uh, I want to see if I can log on here. Why does it do this? Mm, why is it not showing? Okay, this is weird. Okay, so maybe I'll have to figure out tomorrow how to show you guys this, but it's not showing my screen. Maybe it's because I'm in a different browser. Is that the case? Might that be the case? Okay, so anyway, so let's see if this works tomorrow. I'll show you guys tomorrow. But anyway, so the journals are now available on Amazon. I will link the journals and they should be available everywhere on Amazon.com and a couple other Amazon sites. So you should be able to get them. And the cost is actually a lot lower than what I initially had for the other journals. So this is great news. And I think, yeah, I think you're gonna find, yeah, I'll just leave it there for now. Tomorrow I'll come back with them and just make sure that I can show you. and make sure that we have all of them. So that it's going to be paperback and hardcover copies that can be shipped to you through Amazon. So they should be available through Amazon, and you'll be able to get those, and they'll be delivered to you at more affordable prices as well. So which is good, which is a good thing. So shout out to Amazon for that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it what I've been working on. So I'm gonna let you guys know, and you should be able to get access to it right now. So I'm gonna leave links in the bio, in the description, not bio, but in the description, so that you guys can access them. So anyway, so that's the show for today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.